What's up, folks? This is Tony Brewer. You're listening to or watching, as the case may be, Cogitations. Cogitations is the podcast where we think about things, we contemplate them, we turn them over in our minds, and then we discuss them. Daniel chapter 7, verse 28, Daniel writes, "Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me. My countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. We're not going to keep the matter in our heart. We're going to talk about it. And this is Free for All Friday. I got a couple of questions from the email. Incidentally, I don't ever do this at the beginning of the show, but because it is Free for All Friday, for show topics and questions, you can send an email to christianityisnow at gmail.com. And we got two questions from there today. I would urge you, as our platforms for building our audience, good morning, Connie Barden, please add your questions. I would like to build at least the Friday show where we just get on and let's pretend like it's 2016. I mean, we could in 2016, 2017, and 2018. More so 2016, 2017, and the beginning of 2018, we were having like 3.5 hour long live streams with 40, 50, 60 people. Towards the end, they'd getting upwards of 100 people. And then, of course, the bottom was snatched out from under it. And the algorithm changed, things changed, but you can help us beat the algorithm. And you can like, subscribe, and share. And if you ask questions, if you comment, it shows the algorithm that we have interactive content. It is true that your content quality has to be of a certain level. I don't know if we meet that threshold or not. But I do know that even if your quality of your content is really, really good, you can only go so far. You have to have interaction from an audience. So we punch above our weight because of you all. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. Again, good morning, Connie Barden. And I'm going to put the design, I'm going to go to the design and put our icon up here. I do have some material, and hopefully it'll spawn some questions. One has to do with helping the homeless. The other has to do with sunrise service for Easter. So let's get right into it. Our Free for All Friday, helping the homeless and holding the line, gospel outreach and sunrise services. That's what we're going to disseminate this information. Then we're going to talk about it, or we're going to talk about anything you want to talk about. It doesn't matter. So welcome to our Free for All Friday. I've got a couple of things we're going to talk about, and they might ruffle a few feathers because I got some hot takes. But I think the juice is worth the squeeze. We're going to hit on these two issues that have come across my desk, and one is about how we teach or reach the homeless with the gospel, and the other is about sunrise services and whether or not they're biblical. Both have something in common. It's people who want to do what feels good or looks spiritual without asking, is it true? Is it right? Is it from the Word? We have to be careful with that because David did it in the long ago. Let me get in my trusty rusty e-sword, and I believe this is 2 Samuel 7. Where is 2 Samuel? I'd been better off grabbing my Bible. I am still not used to e-swords change. All right. Well, no, that's 2 Samuel 11. That's it should be 2 Samuel 7, I think. Yeah, here it is. And it came to pass when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies, that the king said unto Nathan the prophet, See now, I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth within curtains. And Nathan said to the king, Go do that, or actually, go do all that is in thine heart, for the Lord is with thee. It just sounded good. So this is not a new problem. And of course, we can go on and we can see it came to pass that night that the word of the Lord came unto Nathan, saying, Go and tell my servant David, Thus saith the Lord, Shalt thou build me a house to dwell in? Whereas I have not dwelt in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, even to this day, and have walked in a tent and in a tabernacle. In all the places wherein I have walked with all the children of Israel, spake I a word with any of the tribes of Israel whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying, why build ye not me a house of cedar? Now therefore so shalt thou say unto my servant David, thus saith the Lord of hosts, I took thee from the sheepcote and following the sheep to be a ruler over my people Israel, and I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest, and have cut off all thine enemies out of Israel, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in the place of their own, and move no more, neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more as before time. And since that time that I commanded the judges to be over my people, and have caused thee from all thine enemies to rest, also the Lord telleth thee that he will make thee an house. And I'm going to stop there because I could just keep going. Folks, there's some things that we just got to give to God. We have to understand we don't need to go off half-cocked. We have to go to the Word. Is it true? Is it right? Is it from the Word? So let's dig in. Preaching to the homeless. Well, it's a good question. What can Christians do to teach the gospel to people on the street? It's a fair question. We see tents, the encampments, the wandering, and if you've got any heart at all, you want to help. Jesus said, though, that the poor you have with you always, Matthew 26:11, that's not a dismissal, that's divine reality. It's a description of the real world. Poverty is always going to be a part of this fallen world. You're not going to be able to fix it. You're not going to be able to eliminate homelessness. You're not going to counsel addiction out of existence, and you're not called to do so. The job is to preach the gospel that saves, not programs, not pity. Now, let's be honest. Some people are homeless because they have had tragedy after tragedy, abuse, mental illness, abandonment. They've been chewed up and the world has spit them out. In those cases, compassion absolutely matters. But compassion isn't the same as enablement. Others, many others, are homeless because they want to live outside the rules of society. They don't want to be sober. They don't want to submit. They want to sleep around, get high, dodge responsibility, and blame the system for everything. And here's where we have to think biblically. God allows rebellion. Have you ever thought of that? I remember the day it dawned on me. We just, and this has been years ago, and it's from that parable in Mark, chapter 4, about the sower goes out, he plants, he comes back, and in due time, the little shoot comes up, then the stalk, then the ear, and then you harvest. Well, sometimes I think we go and we think the world ought to be living like Christians are supposed to live. They're just absent the contract, the testament, the covenant. When in reality, we have to teach them about God first and Jesus first before they can get the morality down. So we have to let the world be the world. It's our job to go teach them. It's our job to show them a better way, but we can't force them. We can't break their thumbs. We can't kneecap them. You see, God allows rebellion. He allows ruin. He lets people destroy themselves. He honors their wishes. We are not more merciful than God. We're not more powerful than God. If God permits someone to suffer in sin as a consequence of their choices, we don't override that with a sandwich and a sleeping bag. Charity without wisdom becomes cruelty, and one of the worst kinds of cruelty there can be. There's two ways to enslave people: pay them or work them without paying them, and then pay them without working them. I knew a man, Bobby Kendall. He's Brock Kendall's daddy. Many of you know him. Listen to me. Brock Kendall's daddy, Bobby, used to go around Jonesboro and he'd offer work to homeless people. You want to earn some money? Nobody ever did it. Hunger is supposed to drive people to change, and instead they were all being filled up by guilt-ridden enablers. Paul wrote, if any would not work, neither should he eat, 2 Thessalonians 3:10. That's a divine boundary that we cannot violate. One time I helped a homeless couple. The church offered I can't remember exactly what happened. I can't remember if I'm now I think I'm bleeding 2 stories together. Anyway, in one instance, I helped a homeless couple, and they were not married, but they wanted to be put up in a motel and this, that, and the other, and I didn't even we bypassed the church there because I knew the church wasn't gonna pay for a hotel for these people to live in sin in. So I dropped them off at the local Love's truck stop, and I said, "Here's some, I bought you a hamburger and fries, and here's some money for some food down the road or drugs, I guess, or whatever you want it for, and you can thumb on down the road." You see, and the other one was, I think this was me and Brock. It may have been a young couple that we helped, but they wouldn't stay in separate rooms. Anyway, irrespective of all of that, remember, the people out there that are living this way, they're living this way because they don't wanna follow the rules. So, again, Brock and I gave these people some food and dropped them off at a truck stop. I think that was me and Brock. Anyway, look, it wasn't hate. This was love with limits. Here's the principle: offer the word, offer the truth, set expectations, and do not subsidize rebellion. Think about Romans 10:17. Faith cometh by hearing, hearing by the word of God. That's not about your inner belief. It's not about your personal faith. That's the gospel system being preached into existence. And sometimes in a person's microcosm of an existence, their world, there's no gospel in it. So we have to preach the gospel into existence in this person's world. We're not called to solve the homelessness issue. We're called we're called to preach, we're called to do it with compassion and clarity, but also with boundaries. So help the homeless as much as you can without enabling them, and you will be able to tell very quickly if that person is homeless because they want to be a druggie and not follow the rules of society, or they're homeless because they just had a string of unfortunate events. Now let's shift gears and talk about something else. And it kind of connects because it's another case of something that feels spiritual and good, but it might not be. Let's talk about sunrise services. Here's, well, okay. A congregation had a sunrise service for Easter Sunday, 7:30 in the morning, donuts, coffee, then a regular worship. Somebody asked, "Is that biblical?" Well, let's think it through. Meeting early in the morning, that's not an issue. You can meet at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., midnight. That's not the problem. The purpose is the issue. If you're meeting early for convenience, for extra fellowship, no problem. But if you're holding a special service tied to Easter Sunday to honor the resurrection, this old boy thinks you've got a problem at that point because now we're walking straight in the traditions of men and we're bleeding through the traditions of men into the liturgical service of the Lord's church. Now, this falls in the realm of judgment. It's really easy for me to say that this is not right, that it's wrong, because I've never been a part of a congregation that's done it, and I've never really had to sit down and wrestle with this. I would be very, very uneasy, and I don't think I could participate. I think if I was at a congregation where the eldership said, "Look, we're not bringing the Catholic holiday, Easter, into the liturgical service of the Lord's church, but it is expedient in our judgment once a year to meet at 6 a.m., as close to dawn as we can reasonably get everybody here, and have some fellowship and have a period of devotion where we focus on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. We walk in the churchyard when the dew is still on the ground, and we think about John chapter 20 with Mary meeting Jesus. And so there's some utility there, and it would probably be very, very good. I don't think I could participate. It's too sensational. I can't Bible that anywhere. I think if you wanted to do something like that personally, that would be fine. But once it once it is formalized, there's where your issue is. You see, if you're again, the New Testament church, let me just put it this way. The New Testament church never held an annual resurrection service. Never. The early church remembered the resurrection every week, and I can't bring this up. I can't remember what I was studying where I found this piece of information. Y'all, feel free to fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure that in the first century in Jerusalem and well, in the first century church, not in just Jerusalem. Anyway, Sunday was just another day. Sunday wasn't like it is now in the United States and Canada. Sunday was just another day. In fact, Sunday would have been like the Monday, especially for a Hebrew. And a lot of times the church met very, very early before the workday started, and then they'd come together after the workday was over. I want to make sure I'm not speaking too much, not going farther than what my research, because this you get in trouble when you start talking off the top of your head. I want to say that a lot of times they almost considered that the same service because the Lord's Supper would have been taken in the evening. I'm going to have to go back and hit some of my notes. But the issue is there was never anything special for a sunrise service celebrating Easter. Okay, there's a problem in that. All right. You see, the early church remembered the resurrection every week. That's why they met on the first day of the week, Acts chapter 20 and verse 7. The Lord's Supper was about remembering his death, 1 Corinthians 11:26, and they did it every first day of the week, not once a year. So where did these sunrise services come from? Well, borrowed tradition, feel good, religious theater. I don't know that it was pagan roots. I just don't think it was pagan roots. I think that there's been a lot of study later, uh, lately, within the last 100 years or so. We've kind of Easter isn't really pagan roots. Neither is Christmas. That's a nothing burger. But anyway, it is borrowed tradition and feel good religious theater. It feels holy. It feels meaningful, but feeling something doesn't make it faithful. Worship has to be in spirit and truth, John 4:24. If it's not authorized in the New Testament, it doesn't belong in the church, and we have to or ascertain that Bible authority. Again, having a sunrise service would be fine. Why are you doing it? You got to be careful. Now, here's where a lot of folks trip up. They say, well, it's not hurting anything. But the real question is, who told you to do it? That's the mark of sound doctrine. It's not about what's effective or exciting. It's about what God has bound. Hold fast the form of sound words, 2 Timothy 1:13. Not emotionalism, not ritual, not hype. We don't need man-made moments to honor the resurrection. What we do every Sunday by assembling, by partaking of the Lord's Supper, by preaching Christ crucified and risen, we don't need a service specifically for that. We're supposed to do it every week. If churches want to meet early, that's fine. But if you turn it into a holy observance, an annual resurrection celebration, I'm afraid you've left the pattern. That's not worship, it's innovation, and innovation is a slow drift away from authority. So that's what I've got today before we go to the comment section. Preaching to the homeless, truth with boundaries. On the sunrise service, tradition versus truth. In both cases, it comes down to this: are we obeying God or are we following what feels good? The gospel's not built on comfort, it's built on conviction. And if we're going to walk in the light as He is in the light, we have to be willing to say no to what looks like spiritual, but it isn't authorized. So let's go to our comment section. I hope I've got some good comments today. Thank you so much. It looks like I do. Here's my icon off. Let's go to the chat. Good morning. Here's Connie Barden, Gold Trap. Good afternoon, friends from Tallahassee. My dear mother brought me some shirts. Well, we jumped. Hold on. My dear mother brought me some shirts, socks, and underwear. I also now have loafers. Got it. Well, you're ready to go to church somewhere in the Bible Belt. And you got loafers. I'm sure you got some khakis and a triple button golf shirt somewhere. And with the underwear and the socks, you're hotty toddy. You're ready to go, buddy. Connie Barton says they want to stand on street corners and hold up signs and get money for nothing. And there are so many today that it is hard to distinguish who really needs help and who is just lazy. You got that right, Connie. You got that right. And yeah, Connie Barton says I would not attend a sunrise service. Yeah, I here's the thing. I can craft a scenario where I would. I'm not speaking in finality. But if somebody come up to me and said, like, well, let's just take the church here, and I don't look, this ain't gonna happen. But if the folks of the church here come up and said, "Hey, Tony, I think we ought to have a sunrise service for Easter, and we ought to um, focus on the resurrection, and we ought to bill it to the community," I would have a problem with that. Would I have a problem with that enough where if they did it, I would have to separate? I don't think I would. I think I could do it, but I think I would have to tell them, look, y'all get another speaker in here when whatever you want to do. I don't think I can be a part of this. I just don't think I could. If I found, well, I look, Forest Hill Church of Christ in Memphis, Tennessee, they're big and strong enough that we can run over them with a bus. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have an Easter egg hunt on Sunday between the morning and the afternoon worship service. Well, you know what? The elders that decided to do that, they never called me and asked for my opinion. They didn't ask for my input. And as much as I love them elders, I'm going to tell them, I don't think you ought to do that, but I'm not in charge of the world. Okay. When I say the world, they're not part of the world. I'm not in charge of anybody else but the fella that's under this funky looking hat. I don't think they're in sin for doing it. I just wouldn't do it. Is the sunrise service the same as that? It's at least the same as that. In my opinion, it's worse. So to the person that sent me this question, I'm sorry. I don't think I answered it very good. Anyway, thank you for these comments. Mevelyn Whitaker. Yeah, Melvin. Yeah, Melvin. I don't read very well, evidently. Anyway, blessings to you. Thank you so much, Melvin. And Ben Grady says, do we want to look like those around us to appeal to the world, or in simple submission to the standard? I don't know what they would be. So you could put me on the spot here. I don't know what they would be. But, and incidentally, we're only 26 minutes in. If y'all got questions, comments, observations, especially questions, I don't care what they are, throw them in the comment section. But anyway, well, now I've missed it. I've lost my train of thought. It jumped. Oh, no. I don't know what they would be, but I think there would be liberties that Christians probably don't need to participate in, even though we'd be allowed to do it. I don't know. What would they be? I think that'd be something good. I think that would be something good to talk about. What are there liberties we have in Christ that we don't take advantage of because we want to preserve the sanctity of someone else's faith? Anyway, good stuff. All right, Gold Trap. When I lead communion at church sometimes for my devotional, I will recite the 7 sayings of Jesus on the cross. I will use a dramatic voice to reflect the impact of what was happening. This might not be traditional. However, I believe I am in step with what the Bible teaches. We should not be afraid of innovation, only deviation. I don't know that what you're doing is innovation, though. I think it might be innovative in its time, but I don't think that's innovation. I think dramatically speaking about the events of the cross is nothing new. And, yeah, I'm not taking that from you. I'm saying keep doing it, but just understand I don't think it's innovation. I just think it's something. It's not the opposite of innovation. Gold trap, I don't know how to explain this, but I don't think you're innovating. I just think you're doing. All right. I don't know if I need to be a podcaster or not. I'm not very good with words today. Rusty Kirby said, I had a conversation with a feller Wednesday night. He said in class, I believe in miracles. God works miracles through Christians all the time. What do you say about this statement? Well, it depends on what you mean by miracles. Depends on what you mean by God works. I don't understand. Like a miracle is a violation or a superseding of natural law. Like well, for instance, I've still got this book here. This book by Thomas Nagel, Mind and the Cosmos, why the materialist neo-Darwinian conception of nature is almost certainly false. Well, this is made out of wood pulp. This used to be a tree. Everything about this used to be a tree. If I go boom, and then a fir tree, a Douglas fir sprouts from the cover of this book, that's a miracle because that's dead. There's no life in that. That's a miracle. It's in fact Acts chapter 4, verse 16. What do we? No, I'm quoting the wrong one. A miracle has to be notable, undeniable, and manifest to all. And I can't remember how to quote the verse, but this is a real good verse for this. Saying, what shall we do to these men? For that indeed a notable miracle hath been done by them, is manifest to all them that dwell in Jerusalem, and we cannot deny it. That's a miracle. So what's this person saying a miracle? He might just be misunderstanding what miracle is. But it's not true. Miracles do not happen today at all, if you properly define what a miracle is. Now, I remember back, this is 20 years ago now, whenever Labeth was moving from Weakley County to Obion County for the Department of Human Services, nobody, like the people in the Department of Human Services office in Union City, Tennessee, had all been there for multiplied decades. You didn't get a job in that office unless somebody was fired or retired, and nobody ever got fired, but they did retired and they did die. Well, lo and behold, whenever we were trying to transfer, she had to get that transfer. Not only was the supervisor of the entire office a member of the Lord's church that we happened to know, but somebody retired as Labeth was trying to transfer. That just don't happen. Now, if that fella says, well, that's a miracle. No, it's not a miracle because it could happen. Well, I tell you what, I was listening to, Rusty, I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he said, let's do this thought experiment. Now, before we do this thought experiment, would it be a miracle if I flipped a coin and the first time I tried it, I flipped heads 1,000 times in a row? Now think about that. 1,000 times. Well, forget that. Just 100 times in a row. 100 times in a row. Would you say that's a miracle? Well, it's not. Because it can happen naturally, and it's pretty easy to make it happen naturally. So you take 1,000 people, and each one flips a coin. All right. And so everybody flips a coin, and everybody that flipped heads stays, and everybody that flips tail leaves. And the way Neil deGrasse Tyson explained it, you will have one person, you get it down to two people. I may be telling this wrong. Maybe you don't have everybody flip at once. Maybe you pair them off. But anyway, you have everybody flip their coins, and by the time you're left to one person, you have a person out of 1,000 people, or excuse me, out of 100 people, or 1,000, I can't remember. You've got a person that's flipped a coin and it landed on heads 10 times in a row. Well, you multiply that out and just keep adding your zeros, and reasonably, I think you could do 10,000 people in one day. So if you do 10,000 people, I tell you what, let's ask ChatGPT. Let's see if ChatGPT can help us with this. Neil deGrasse Tyson told a story about flipping a coin, and you have 1,000 people or 100 people, I can't remember, and they all flip the coin, and everybody that does tails has to sit down, and everybody that has heads keeps going. And you do this enough till there's only one person, and one person would have flipped the coin 10 times on heads. Help me out with that. What am I thinking of? Thank you very much. All right, you got to be polite to your Chat GPT. All right. All right, here we go. So in essence, you start with 1,024 people because 2 to the 10th power is 1,024. Each person flips. Everyone who flips head stays in. Everyone who flips tail stay out. You repeat this process 10 times, and statistically, one person will have flipped 10 heads in a row. That person might know he's been the master. That person might now be seen as the master of coin flipping, but in reality, it was just probability working out as expected in a large enough group. Tyson uses this to show how apparent skill or divine favor can sometimes be nothing more than survivalship bias. So, is there a way to extrapolate that and see how many people you would have to get to have somebody flip a coin 100 times in a row on heads, or 1,000 times in a row? The Chat GPT is good for stuff like this. All right. And I appreciate every one of you. We got such a good crowd, and I've got some comments to get to here. I want to see what Chat GPT says back to me on this. All right. Yeah, so for 1,000 heads in a row, you would have to, okay, that number is so large it dwarfs the number of atoms in the known universe. In practical terms, that means you could never expect one instance of 1,000 heads in a row. All right. For N heads in a row, you need two. Yeah, I don't know. This gets into real bad math. All right. Anyway, no, that's Neil deGrasse Tyson not trying to explain that life is common in the universe with that. I listened to the whole interview. He's just talking about chance, which it's true. So again, if you take that 1,024 people, well, you're going to have somebody that has flipped heads at least 10 times in a row. And to flip heads 10 times in a row, that would be crazy. And I don't understand what ChatGPT just did, because if I had 100,000 people and everybody flipped a coin, and the people that flip heads stay in and the people that flip tails stay out, eventually I'm going to weed it down to one person, and that person is going to have flipped heads however many times in a row there were rounds. And that's seemingly miraculous, but it's not. It's just chance. That's the thing. It's chance. And so, folks, we see things that's hard to understand, or things that's not very probable, and we say, because we can't wrap our heads around the math, we say, well, that's a miracle. All right. Good afternoon, Jenny Blackwell. And Rusty Kirby said he told me a story about a man while at a service fell out, and a doctor at service said he will never make it to the hospital, with a guy still living today, and that's a miracle. Yeah, that's just. I mean, my daddy, whenever he was younger, saw a great big Buick hit a guardrail on a bridge, and the Buick was in two perfect pieces long ways, and there were just some minor cuts and bruises. But that Buick hit that guardrail going so fast that it split the car in two. Minor cuts and bruises. And then you see other people that get in little fender benders where the airbags don't even deploy, and they die, or they have a head injury where they're a vegetable for the rest of their life, or they break a neck or something like that. Hello, Diana Merritt Harden. Good to see you. That's right. And of course, the congregation prayed over him before he left the hospital. And Jason Gotrap says, I understand, Tony, you're okay with me. I meant that what I do uh, was not something I would have seen done in the 70s or 80s. It was just say a couple of words and then move on. I'm glad that I attend where the elders are not tied to the two songs and the prayer model of the 1950s. Each man contributes in a humble, orderly way his God-given talent to praise God. That is truly a blessing compared to Pentecostal disorder or Catholic liturgy. Yeah. Hello, George V. Williams. Good to see you. Thank you very much for commenting. I'll make sure I didn't miss any. I did miss some of George V. Williams up here. Good to see you, sir. All right. And Neil deGrasse Tyson is trying to explain that life is common in the universe. It's an absurd notion because who made the coin, the person flipping, the gravity to flip, etc. Yeah, that wasn't the. I mean, I don't know that Neil's made that. I've seen Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about life in the universe, and he believes that life has to be somewhere, but I don't believe he believes it's common. It's interesting to hear him talk about it, though. It really is. Well, folks, thank you so much, Diana S. Johnson. Harold Jordan set our mind on Christ alone. Thank you very much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the come on, Tony. Your comments, your questions. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the person that emailed these questions in. Um, it really means a lot to me. Remember, subscribe to Cogitations on Spreaker.com, or do Apple Podcast or Spotify. Just about anywhere you listen to podcasts, the Cogitations podcast is going to be, and that's what this episode is, Free for All Friday Cogitations. And yeah, don't forget about the P.O. Box. I say the P.O. Box all the time because I think it's funny. I got to take a big breath. P.O. Box 99900 HR 567-317 RPO Mountain Road, Moncton, New Brunswick, E1C 0T1. And then for show topics and questions, send an email, christianityisnow@gmail.com. All right. Well, folks, I appreciate it. I like the time slot. I think the 1 o'clock time slot's good for me. That's an 11 o'clock for you if you're Central Standard Time, 12 if you're Atlantic. And other than that, remember Substack. In fact, I hadn't done this in a while. I'm gonna share an article from Substack. I'm proud of this article. I'm proud of this one. I don't care what anybody says. Let God prove it. Copy link. All right. So the article is entitled "Let God Prove It." It was the podcast from yesterday. Most of these articles end up being live streams, or most of these live streams end up being articles. Maslow, quit that. So Yeah, the articles. The articles are on Substack. Go to Substack and search Christianity Now, and you'll be able to find them. Um, I don't even know if I have that up here on a. Yeah, subscribe to our Substack. Just go to Substack and do Christianity Now, and you'll find it. And then, of course, the tip jar. You can send money, a monetary donation to the tip jar if that's what you like to do. And that's nearchurches@gmail.com. Folks, that's all I've got. God bless every one of you. This has been Tony Brewer with Cogitations. You've listening to Free for All Friday, and we'll catch you Monday on the flip side.